We've had a couple of conversations this week. One is focused on Russell Wilson. Can you play yourself out of the Hall of Fame? Now, I don't know if you had him in the Hall of Fame, but he's playing himself maybe out of consideration for the Hall of Fame. Do you believe that, given that he had a 10-year run that was pretty impressive, these last
Yeah.
couple of years have been pretty rough?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would say play your way out of it. I think what I would say in these last few years with Russell is maybe it gives you a different perspective of the kind of player that he was. Is that, when he was in Seattle, obviously they had a great defense when they went on their run, and he was asked to be more of a complementary piece, more of a playmaking piece, than actually, playing more drop back quarterback, carrying the team with his right arm. And so when he left, I think I think it was Russell's idea, as well as wherever he chose, is that he wanted to show people that he could play the position more conventionally and more like, I think, guys like Brady and Manning and those things. And he didn't have to just be a playmaker. And then that hasn't worked out. And, he tried in numerous spots now, and it hasn't worked out to show people that. And so I think, if anything, it maybe gets people to look back and go, okay, who is the real Russell Wilson here? And again, I don't know if that plays anybody out of the Hall of Fame, because you mentioned it. The first decade, statistically, was really, really impressive. But I think it may have people step back and go, okay, who is, the guy that we're looking at? And, the Hall of Fame type of thing, was he an elite player at that position comparative to other players? And, as well as I do, that there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I mean, you look at my situation, is I didn't play as many games and certain things, but when I played at a high level. So I was able to get in. Some other guys may not have played at quite a high level, but played longer and have better stats and those things, and they get into the Hall of Fame. And so there's so many ways to weigh, I think, what the Hall of Fame is. But that's what I would say. Not necessarily play his way out of it, but have people look at him a little bit differently and kind of compare the two quarterbacks to decide, okay, who was Russell Wilson and does he fit in that category?
But if you don't go to Arizona, are you getting into the Hall of Fame?
I mean, I would highly doubt it. Even though, there was an elite level of play and 2 Super Bowls and 2 MVPs in St. Louis, I think ultimately it would have been just not enough time to be able to have, another 3 years and go to another Super Bowl with another team. I think is what kind of stamped that, and again, it could have easily said, hey, this guy at his peak, was a Hall of Fame quarterback, but that peak wasn't long enough. And so, again, I think we've seen a lot of different ways for guys to, solidify themselves as Hall of Famers. And, that becomes the ultimate question, at the end of the day. I mean, you have Eli Manning that's right there on the cusp. And I think they're weighing heavily Super Bowls, right? Super Bowls and, winning Super Bowls. Well, Russell has been to 2 Super Bowls. I know he only won one of those, but, so what exactly is the determining factor in getting to the Hall of Fame? I don't know if anybody knows exactly. And as you said, and we mentioned, that first 10 years, I think, you asked me if I didn't go to, Arizona, would I have been in the Hall of Fame? Probably not. If Russell Wilson didn't go anywhere else besides Seattle, would he be in the Hall of Fame? And the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.